Good afternoon, and thank you for being here. My name is Calvin Taylor.
Hi, I'm Becca Hartman-Pickerel.
And we are from the Interfaith Youth Corps. And this afternoon, we'll be talking to you about the importance of interfaith friendships. So, I want us to travel together back to a relatively recent and important time in American history. And for the next 5 minutes or so, I want us to try to inhabit that time as much as possible, okay? So the year's 1963, and a young Catholic named John F. Kennedy is President of the United States, the youngest man to ever hold this office. This same year, push-button telephones are introduced. The famous Mona Lisa painting is unveiled at America's National Gallery of Art, and Pope John XXIII's Pacem in Terris, or Peace on Earth encyclical, is issued. One can speak of 1963 in other terms as well. America's role in Vietnam is rapidly growing, along with the cost of that involvement. The Buddhist monk Thich Quang Duc burns himself to death on a Saigon street to protest the persecution of Buddhists. And of course, later that year, President Kennedy is assassinated in Dallas. So let's talk a little bit more about 1963. What else is going on? We're going to travel north, 1,000 miles north, right here to Chicago. At the northern end of Lakeshore Drive stood the Edgewater Beach Hotel, which was the host site for the National Conference on Religion and Race. This historic event, opened with a statement from President Kennedy, will be the first time that major faith communities in America dealt with the profound social issue of racism and all its interlocking systems of oppression. This conference, which was convened to commemorate the 100th anniversary of the Emancipation Proclamation, gathered some 650 delegates, including Cardinal Albert Meyer of Chicago and Dr. Benjamin E. Mays, president of Morehouse College at the time. This conference would also be the site where two faith leaders, two men from two different faith traditions, would meet and form a friendship that would shape a great deal of interfaith relations to come and show us that friendships matter. So let's talk about these two men. In 1940, a young Jew flees Nazi Europe to receive refuge from Nazi Europe. And he comes to America and is later invited to the 1963 conference to speak as a Jewish rabbi. Another young man, a Baptist preacher from Atlanta, Georgia, is also invited to speak at this conference. And it is here that they meet and form a friendship that would last essentially a lifetime. The former being Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel, and the latter being the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr. This friendship would take them to the front line of many battles together. Often you can see them depicted standing arm in arm. And their friendship, they grew so close that Dr. King actually invited Abraham Heschel to march alongside him and other civic and faith leaders from Montgomery to Selma, Alabama. This friendship, they formed a friendship over the shared concerns of anti-Black racism in America and the struggle of Jews in the Soviet Union. And they explicitly saw these issues as interfaith issues. And so here we see them standing arm in arm, and Rabbi Heschel often speaks of this experience of marching with Dr. King and other protesters to his experience walking with Hasidic rebbes, which is an experience of prayer in Hasidic piety. The quote from his journal article that people often most hear is, "I felt my legs were praying." And this is an interfaith interpretation of his experience. Heschel's presence on the front line of many of these battles represented religious Jewish commitment to civil rights in America. And it also mobilized Jews across the country and across the world, from activists to lawyers. And so it is no wonder then that friendships are at the center of interfaith cooperation. At Interfaith Youth Corps, IFYC, we work towards an America where people of different faiths, values, and traditions can build bridges and build a shared life together. We partner with colleges and universities across the country because we believe that campuses are both laboratories and launching pads of interfaith cooperation to build a society imbued with interfaith cooperation. And we believe that Rabbi Heschel and Dr. King's friendship models this or exhibits this perfectly. Heschel and King both respected each other's unique identities, King as a Christian, Heschel as a Jew. They built and cultivated a mutually inspiring relationship that inspired them to common action. And they shared those shared concerns of anti-Black racism in America and the struggle of Jews in the Soviet Union.
So a room such as this, a campus, a city, a nation that is practicing interfaith cooperation also bears the benefits of civic religious pluralism. We draw our definition for civic religious pluralism largely from Diana Eck, scholar of religion at Harvard, who makes a distinction between diversity, a fact, the mere presence of difference, and pluralism, an achievement, the engagement of that difference. So we are less interested in who is in the room and more interested in how that engagement looks. We like to back up our stories and our methodology with research. And so in 2015, IFYC partnered with The Ohio State University and North Carolina State University on a longitudinal survey of 7,200 students from 122 institutions. It's called IDEALS, the Interfaith Diversity Experiences and Attitudes Longitudinal Survey. You can find all the results at ifyc.org/ideals. But from the treasure trove of findings, we want to share just one with you today. What you see on the screen mirrors the same results that you'll find from Pew or Gallup with the broader national population, although this is for undergraduates in the US. The bar on the left, the blue, indicates high appreciative attitudes of students who have a close friendship with someone from a different worldview identity. The bar on the right, the orange, is the high appreciative attitudes of students who do not have a close friend of that other worldview identity. In some cases, having a close friend who identifies as another religious or worldview tradition makes you 15 percentage points higher in how you view that tradition in positive ways, how you appreciate it. We know that your appreciation has a lot to do with how you are open to new relationships, receive information, and generally orient towards other communities in the world. Which brings us back to the importance of relationships. Relationships are not only crucial for human flourishing, they're also central for community health. We know that students who had close friendships with someone from another worldview tradition also had a higher self-authored worldview commitment. This is your sense of who you are, what you believe in the world. So me having a relationship with you, our conversations, our work together, our meals shared, our discussion helped me reflect on who I am and what I believe. Students with a close friend from another worldview tradition have higher appreciative attitudes of that group and towards other worldview identities in general. This is what political scientist Robert Putnam calls the pal-al phenomenon. If I have a friend who is Hindu or atheist, I not only have higher appreciative attitudes of those traditions, but also of all worldview traditions in general. Students with a close friendship of another worldview identity had higher appreciative knowledge, something true and positive about other traditions, and a higher pluralism orientation. So this is one's openness or ability to engage across deep difference. So of all of the factors and all of the findings, close friendships had a higher correlation to a growth in pluralism orientation, that ability to engage across difference, than any other factor. Which is why we are here today talking about the importance of friendships, not just for human flourishing, but also for the health of the community. So that brings us back to Chicago. The image you see before you is the first permanent memorial to Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. here in Chicago. It's called the Martin Luther King Jr. Living Memorial, and it was erected on August 5th, 2016, the 50th anniversary of King's March in Marquette Park. This march is in many ways a stain on Chicago's history and legacy, but this monument is a sign that it wouldn't define us, but inform how we thought about engaging across difference into the future. When King came, just 3 years after meeting Heschel here in Chicago, he marched in Marquette Park on Chicago's southwest side for housing justice, to raise awareness around unjust and racist housing policies. He, marching with Rabbi Robert Marks and 700 other community members, were met with thousands of protesters, hurling insults and bottles and rocks. That is a part of our past, and it informs but doesn't define who Chicago is. And Iman, a nonprofit also in Marquette Park, started by Rami Nashashibi, a Palestinian-American Muslim, is serving that community for the health, wellness, and healing of their community and beyond. Iman was the impetus behind this memorial. They mobilized students and civic leaders, religious leaders, politicians, funders, community artists for a decade to create, imagine, build together this beautiful memorial. Rami often talks about his own tradition of Islam, finding its expression in his observation of the Black American experience. Those relationships help to form this memorial. Relationships matter, not just for human flourishing, but for the health of our communities. 20 years ago, another Chicago American Muslim entrepreneur and friend, Ibu Patel, started the Interfaith Youth Corps, not far from here. Calvin and I are so honored to be here today as a part of this wonderful fair and honoring of the day and the week. And our challenge to you all is this. Think about someone in your life, maybe another worldview identity, maybe some other deep difference, maybe some deep disagreement, who could be a relationship to cultivate, even a friendship to foster. And do that. Think about a challenge or a problem in your community that only a diverse group of people coming together to mobilize for some common vision can achieve. And when you start that, let us know, because we want to weave those stories, your stories, into the story we tell about Chicago. Thank you.